ambition, 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 ambition.
Ambition.
Oh no, come on.
That's where I am today.
Bring some energy, Alex. What? Do you want to tell
I'm
us
doing
more?
my best, guys. I'm doing my
Yes,
best.
she's trying today. Welcome
I
back,
have a
guys.
sick kid.
Yes.
That's the energy I'm bringing today. Hi, everybody. Yep, it's Alex.
Woohoo! And we've got a lady called Kim Stokes today, and
Ooh, a
Kim knows
lady.
about the ambition. Ambition. Do you want to join in, Kim?
Ambition.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you definitely need one of your listeners, I'm sure, could come up with an amazing jingle. So there you go, challenge to all your listeners, send in a ambition jingle.
Oh, I'll have to put that on the
like
list. I
it.
love that. Well, today, guys, I'll tell you more about the wonderful Kim Stokes. So she's a founder of Kindness for Success and a former corporate HR leader who transformed her own experience with burnout into a mission to support overwhelmed working mums. After facing redundancy and navigating the delicate balance of career ambitions with motherhood, Kim now coaches women to redefine success on their own terms. Through her signature program, Frantic to Fulfilled, she helps working mothers move from surviving to thriving, challenging the myth of having it all and instead focusing on discovering what your all truly means. Woohoo!
Hey, Kim.
Woohoo! Thanks. Love that intro. If you could just walk around with me 3 times.
Yeah, I would quite like someone to do that for me as well.
Like a hype woman.
Yeah.
Exactly. We all
Yeah.
need one.
And I think that a great place to start is the fact that you actually suggested coming on the podcast. So I love that you're not afraid to ask for what you want, right? You made it happen.
Yeah. So I made, I guess, obviously it's the new year, and one of the things that I want to do this year is to go on more podcasts. So I was invited onto a couple at the end of last year off the back of a 15-hour fundraising stream that I did, and I loved them. And I thought, you know what, I want to do more of this. And how I started was just by thinking of, okay, what are the podcasts that I enjoy listening to, and also what are the podcasts that I guess, the people that I tend to work with would, find useful and listen to. And I love Mambition. And I thought, yeah, do you know what? I'm just going to ask. And actually, I just sent, so Alex and Tiffany, we were already connected on LinkedIn and, would comment and all those sorts of things. And then I just, I recorded a voice note, didn't I? And pinged it over.
Pretty cool.
And
Yeah, I love that. I was like, yes, she's coming on. I don't know if she's got anything to say, but she can come anyway.
Love that approach. She can come on. Who cares?
But I think in my head, I thought, well, if someone's going to put themselves out there like that, that's the sort of person we'd probably want to get to know a bit more. And I think it just goes to show, isn't it? Sometimes you've got to put yourself out there if you want something.
Yeah. Exactly.
Tiffany's brought me round to the voice note as well. I'm like proper millennial and was like, ooh, I don't know about that. And then now I'm voice noting everyone all the time.
I swear, sometimes I just don't know how I'd live without voice note. My best mate lives she lives sort of Preston Chorley way, and we actually don't speak live that often, but every day we'll leave voice notes, sometimes multiple. So it's, you sort of get, if you don't speak to someone for a while and you're like, oh, how's things been and XYZ, whereas you can be like, oh god, the kid, this happened, and you sort of feel like you still are catching up.
It does add something, and I think I've definitely left a few for my husband, and I've had to delete it after that. I'm like, you gotta kind of, delete the bit. But you have the delete option anyway, in case depending on which
maybe I should do that sometimes.
I always really like as well when Tiffany voice notes me. I can normally hear Bella in the background. I can normally hear. Sorry, we shouldn't mention their names. I can hear the kids in the background, playing and stuff like that, and it's really nice to get that little insight into what's going on, and it's just really cute. Bit of Coco Melon in the background.
Coco Melon. Anyway. So, kindness for success. Tell us more.
Yes. So, again, with a wonderful intro, I'm like, oh, yeah. Thank you for that. So, I set up Kindness for Success, my coaching business, well, it will be a year ago at the beginning of April. So I'm still, oh, I'm in the first year. And then suddenly I'm like, oh, it's going to be like 10 months next week. And as you said, I've had a sort of career in HR, both in sort of generalist roles, but also in sort of learning and development and leadership development. And I guess, as you shared, I had my own personal, experiences. I had been made redundant, which was actually for the second time. The first time was when I was on maternity leave, before returning with my first, who's now 9. So it wasn't something new, and as much as, I've been on the other side of the fence, in HR being like, oh, it's not personal, and you're like, I know, but it feels it. But actually it was, so at the time there was, where the place I wasn't, sort of the place for me. And yes, I was sort of heading towards a not great space. I have, had sort of my own mental health challenges over the years. And I sort of manage anxiety ongoing through, various things. Usually I can manage it, and actually it's part of me, and not that long ago I wouldn't have spoken to anyone about it, let alone on a podcast, but I was beginning to spiral, and I thought, no, this isn't what I need or what I want. And I'd always thought that when I was a grown-up, in inverted commas, that I would do something on my own. And I mean, I'm 43, I'll be 44 this year, married, 2 children, and you're like, maybe this is the time. So obviously the leap sort of into coaching wasn't a leap, because I guess I'd been in, always in the people space, but qualified, got accredited, and absolutely fell in love with coaching. And I guess kindness for success, as you said, is very much around defining success on our own terms. And I've got sort of 2 philosophies, I guess, I work with. And the first is around flipping the notion of having it all to having your all, because I think it's sort of damaging how we've really been brought up, with the, you can have it all, you can have the career, you can be an amazing mom, you can make homemade lentil pies, you can run marathons, you can have an ideal home, worthy house, and, all of these sorts of things. And instead, actually, once we just find success on our own terms, a key enabler of living that is extending ourselves kindness in the same way we do to others, because I find that women and particularly mums are really not great at that. And I speak from experience, and I'm not saying I get it right all of the time. I definitely don't. But I have learned along the way that if I'm not extending myself kindness, then I can't show up for my all, so my kids, my husband, my friends, whatever it is, sustainably in the way I want to. So there's a lot about the kindness to ourselves.
I really like that approach. I think, if you think about the having it all and the kind of lean in and all of that kind of thing, I think it sounds empowering on the surface of it, and that's the problem, that it sounds good. Like, who doesn't want to have it all? But actually, that's not possible, and it's just the road to burnout, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the road to feeling like you're failing at everything.
Yes.
And I feel like it's not a phrase we apply to men either, is it? Like, oh, you can have it all. Like, we expect them to have what they want to have. And not have to do the housework or whatever. Like that, like it's much less on them to like keep a perfect home as well and have it all Instagram worthy. They're just doing the bits they want to. And I think I love the idea of being kind to yourself, because that's so easily forgotten. And I think as well, we would be much kinder to other people than we would be to ourselves.
100%, always. And I think as well, it's that whole it's used quite a lot, isn't it? But actually, asking yourself, well, would you say that to your best friend, or would you talk to, the voice, you know, or the inner critic, the imposter, the gremlin, whatever you call it, that voice, you know, in your head saying, oh my God, like who's going to want to listen to you? Or, oh, why would Alex and Tiffany entertain having you on the podcast? You know, they are powerful. I have named mine. Mine is called Gertrude, my
nice name.
um, and I have learned to, you know, I no longer try and sort of get rid of her. I know that she's here to protect me and keep me safe. But I actually, it sounds odd, but I have now she has a persona. I've got a much better sort of relationship with her, and sometimes she'll say things and, you know, it's more like, do you know what? Well, actually, I have got stuff that I can share with others, and you know, they might say yes, and if they don't, that's fine as well. But yeah, I think that's interesting observation actually, Alex. I haven't really thought about it in that way before. That yeah, with men, there's never a they're not
all.
up.
Come on, guys.
I think you know, it's almost back to sort of the, you know, the suffragettes and all that sort of stuff, you know, in which I think, you know, was so brilliant that, oh, actually, you know, women do have rights and, you know, we can work and we can do all the, you know, vote and all these sorts of things. But I think then what happened is that it just became, but you still need to do everything else. And then, you know, I guess we in a, you know,
collective,
as a collective, thank you, have then sort of put, you know, grown up thinking like, oh, well, because we can have it, or well, we should and we need to, and put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And I think as well, what we see a lot of, and I know I've been guilty of it, and friends, our colleagues, you know, is that comparison to, you know, to the others. And I think when we spoke before, you said, Alex, you know, that whole comparison is the thief of joy. I can't remember which wise person
I don't know which wise
said
person.
that.
I'd love to say it was me, but it
We would love to say
Roosevelt. I think it might be Roosevelt.
I'll claim it if no one else is
Oh no, it's Churchill. It's Churchill.
Come on.
okay.
Everything's Churchill. No, I'm joking. It's not. I think it's Theodore Roosevelt. I think it is. I'll say that, but don't.
Oh, and it wasn't a
don't
woman.
It isn't.
If not, it was me. It was
Well, yes, exactly. Coined by, on date. But no, I think jokes aside, it's sort of that. And again, my kids are a bit older than yours. They're 9 and 6. So, you know, and when I was still working in the city and stuff, and I would rock up, you know, to the playground late, you know. My daughter definitely wouldn't have like seen a hairbrush. I'd be like, I wouldn't have had my makeup on because I'd be doing it on the, you know, on the train. And then you'd see, you know, I would then be like, oh my goodness, look, like her hair always looks like amazing. Oh, I'm like screaming, like, come on, we're gonna be late.
She'd be like,
and then, you know, they're like,
children.
mother, oh darling,
Mother.
spellings, had this nice calm morning. And then you just start your day off thinking like, right, everyone else is well turned out, everyone else is children, everyone else can get to school on time. Oh, you know, and then there's the whole, you know, I guess, working mums and non-working mums, and the non-working mums feeling like, they can never say like, I'm stressed, I haven't got time, because they might feel guilty they don't work. And then you've got the mums that are working thinking, you know, you know, you probably think I'm a really bad mom, and I would love to do that. And you know, and actually, you know, we're not helping anyone in doing that. And I think it's interesting, because I think, you know, that whole can you have it all is you know, being spoken about quite a lot at the moment.
Yeah, I think there's so many layers. I think what you're touching on, Kim, is like, I think there's just so many layers. There's so many themes. There's so many like branches to it, because one minute we've got boss babe, next minute we've got soft life, and then, you know, and the next minute we've got, you know, working mom, and next minute we've got, you know, you take a pause to not work, and then there's just so many themes. And I think there's so many. Our society is constantly evolving with what women are and what women should be, to the point that you decide, okay, fine, it's soft life season, and then before you know it, it's now boss babe season, and then you're like, maybe I should be more boss babe. So it's just so many. I think women are often put into these categories all the time, and it's ever changing, and we're trying to keep up with it.
I was just going to say, I'd even add into that like women's body shapes. Like there's
Yeah,
even
but
like
back then,
fashions in those.
yeah.
Like
There was a time when muscles was in fashion. Now it's bums and BBLs. It's quite interesting. Now it's been curvy. Now
What's a
before.
BBL?
Oh, we won't go into that. This is not.
Okay.
It's basically when
Oh,
women
dear.
put things into their buttocks to make it
Right.
But that's
someone endowed
large
with
and very,
already
yeah.
large buttocks, I definitely don't need
Well, do you know,
that.
I need to tell my kids that, because honestly, do you know what? Yesterday on a Monday is the one day I pick the kids up straight from school, and between my kids, they're at different sites, and between getting my daughter and going to get my son, I swear, when you're like, oh my God, right, my daughter said to me, Mum, why does your bum wiggle when you walk? And I was like, well, like I'm walking. And she was like, no, but like it like jiggles because it's big. And when you're like, well, where did that even come from? And then she, before, like I say, I even got round the corner to get my son, she's like, oh, because she goes to after school club the other days, and she's like, oh, I really wish I went to after school club on Monday. And I'm like, but that's when Mummy comes to pick you up. She's like, yeah, I just want to go to after school club. And and you're like, why do I even bother? Anyway, I went off on a tangent then. There was something about bottoms. Yes,
We
that was
all
it.
went off on a mad
Let's
tangent
go
about
BBL
bottoms.
next time.
from buttocks back to let's go back to corporate.
Buttocks to business. That could be the name of this episode.
Yes. Let's look at the lower hanging fruit, guys. Let's revert back
Circle
to
back away from the
circle back.
bottoms.
I think I liked what you were saying earlier as well, Kim. Let's talk about that a bit. I think this idea of corporate burnout to entrepreneurship, the shift you make, because you make it sound quite nice, and it was a lovely transition. I managed to do it, but I'd love to learn a bit more about that middle, what it was like, because I think it's easy to have goals and have dreams and have, I would love to be a business owner and dream about it, but I'd love to hear what really made you think, okay, I'm doing this, and I'm, you know what I mean, because that, and actually take action and like transition, because so many women listening to this are maybe thinking they've had enough, they're sick of it, but it's hard to transition.
Yeah. So no, it's a really good question, and I guess it's sort of for a few things. So I would say, to begin with, I mentioned that the place I was working at the time culturally wasn't the right. It wasn't right for me from aligning with my values and morals and all those sorts of things, and that was fine because I knew that from fairly early on. But I still, had some great experiences, met some great people, all of those sorts of things. But it was never going to be my forever. Whilst, as I said, it was a redundancy when I parted, I think, in hindsight, I probably stayed too long because, no, I wouldn't. It wouldn't be fair. Won't go into the detail, but I guess for me, being in that sort of culture wasn't helpful, and I think, I guess I was probably trying to, force myself into something that wasn't right. So, not really aligning with my values and morals, which I guess meant that I was constantly sort of, on edge and anxious, and I wasn't sleeping properly. So then when I'd get up, I would be really snappy with the kids, and then, it would come to the weekends and I would just, I just wouldn't really want to do anything apart from sleep, and I definitely don't want to be playing, and, even sort of seeing friends. And so I think there was there was that, and actually when I was made redundant, it was just before the start of the summer holidays, and because I planned to be working, I actually had the kids signed up for holiday camps, grandparents, all those sorts of things. So I guess secondly, I actually had the luxury, in inverted commas, of a bit of time. And I've got a very supportive husband, and he was like, look, just take a bit of time and just and obviously not huge, I hadn't been there long, but obviously I had a bit of money from the redundancy, so it wasn't like, right, you need to get a job the next day, and so it sounds a bit cheesy, but I think often you learn more about what you want when you can define what you don't want, and also what what you're not going to put up with. So that was a big one for me. And then I think in terms of the taking, I guess, that step to do it, to me it felt like, it just felt like the right thing to do for me at that time. And it also, it ticked a lot of boxes. It meant that, so for tomorrow I've got, in the middle of the day, my youngest, they're going to like a forest school thing and they need parent helpers, so I'm going to that. Last week it was the school's 380th anniversary. Can you believe that?
Wow.
Did they go to Eton or something?
No, yeah, no. No, they don't. It's a good old CME primary school in Greater London, but yeah, I do some bits with the school, and so I was
You've got
able
the
to
flexibility
go along
and
to
freedom,
that,
yeah.
and, so there's those sorts of things, and then you can stop me because I know I can just talk and talk.
Well, that's a good point. I think what you're saying about the flexibility and the freedom, and I think,
Yes.
the bottom line is that for a lot of women, I mean, I think Anouk Noofman talked about it as well. Sorry, Anouk, if I'm sort of, I don't know if I pronounced your last name, sorry. She talked about like the flexibility a lot, then freedom that comes with, running your own business, because, at the end of the day, we have these children and time is flying. So sometimes you just have to take that risk to make this decision that's a little bit scary, because the upsides are that you can take your kids to nursery, you can, like you said, go on a school trip, and that's, I mean, there was a video on LinkedIn just this morning where this man had managed to go to his daughter's, I think, recital, and when she saw him, she burst into tears. And just think, that's beautiful. I think because she
Yeah.
wasn't expecting that he could come, and you just think that's what it's about, because we do want to be involved, right? A lot of times we want to be involved, we want to be able to do things with them. So it sounds like having your business, even though it's a bit of a risk, a bit of a jump, it was worth the flexibility and the lifestyle it gives you to do those things with your children.
Definitely, and I think as well, it enables me to be a better mum. Not just, okay, fine, I can do those things, but it also enables me to show and I guess practice what I preach in terms of self-kindness. So I'll give two examples. One was, and you can tell I'm just getting over sort of a cold, blah 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 that's been going around, but at the end of last week, Thursday and Friday, I felt really right. When you're all like shivery and you've got the blanket and then your nose is streaming, you're just tired, you've got a headache. And it was Thursday afternoon and I had a meeting in it, but it wasn't a coaching client. And I thought, right, I feel like crap. Like, I'm probably not going to show up for that call how I want to. And I could sit at my computer, but I'm not really going to do anything. So what I'm going to do is see if the person can move to next week, which they could, and I'm going to go for a nap. And I set my alarm for an hour. I slept for 3 hours.
Wow,
and
nice.
I don't nap. Like, maybe I should do it more. It was lovely, but it was, that's and yes, if you're working in a corporate, you can't be like, oh, I'm going to go for a 3-hour nap. But it's more about listening to what I needed. And again, I'm still learning because, obviously the more challenging sides of working for yourself are, well, if I'm not doing stuff to, attract more business, new clients, whether it's corporate, whether it's private, well, no one else is. So where's the money coming from? So, not that long ago, I'd have thought, oh, well, no, I need, because you were going to write that other post and you were going to, but it's actually no, what I need, and then to be able to, get myself better. I did that, and then like today, so when I shared that I'm a runner and I do love it, I started just pretty much the time I had kids, and it's for me, it's more like, obviously it's good, the physical side, but it's more mental, keeping me sort of mentally well. And because I haven't been feeling well, I haven't run in over a week, which is a lot for me. And I went, well, the kids, like I said, I had one of those mornings when you're like, I just screamed, and my daughter had the wrong shorts, my son was moaning about his socks, like the kitten had pooed, like, you know, I was like, oh, and they were moaning about something else, and I don't know, it was one of those. And so I'd planned to go after drop and I didn't, and then actually I had a networking call at 10, and then I knew I had this in the diary, and I was like, but you know, no, I'm going to go for a run. And I did, and again, I could have done some follow-up emails, and I was like, but no, you haven't been for over a week. And I came back and I was like, yes, like fired up, really excited for this. And then I've got some things, you know, later this afternoon. So it does enable the flexibility and freedom, but also that, that it allows me to practice what I preach in terms of that kindness piece.
And the freedom sounds like the kind of most important part of that. And I feel almost like people, when they step out of the normal 9 to 5, are what do they call it, when institutionalized to sitting down and working from 9 to 5, and then feel guilt if they're not doing that, even though, you know, when you're in the office you might stand and chat to somebody for 15 minutes.
Yes, exactly.
Do you know, nobody is working every minute of that 8 hours. They're just not. And I also think it's interesting that every single job can be done in 37.5 hours a week. Like, it's so weird that arbitrary number has just been picked out, and no matter what job, it's all going to be done in that period of time. But the freedom of working for yourself is very attractive. I think what Tiffany was saying about kids as well, of they're only little for this short period of time, and not everyone can have that freedom, but the freedom to be there for your kids, when we're talking about having it all, that is one of the things that I think people feel really guilty about saying they want to be at every school play and things like that. They feel like it shows they're not committed enough. But everything's a season, and I feel like we should give people a lot more slack to be able to be present parents, be allowed to do that.
Or even less ambitious sometimes. I think this whole thing, like, it's weird, isn't it? Because I've thought about it recently, this idea of even being less ambitious, weirdly enough, because, I was saying last time that I had a business, Ricks and Media, prior to working in my current company. When I was pregnant with my son, I was pregnant with my second child, my daughter. I was running a business. So I was going from, like, dressing gown, sleeping on the floor, to putting on a blazer, lipstick, and showing up on meetings. And I don't know why I was doing all that, because I probably didn't need to, and I'm very fortunate that, we're okay. But I think it's a sense of, I see myself as very ambitious, I have a career, it's part of my identity. So I think I struggled with the idea of just being home with the kids in a weird way. And it's weird because, as you think about the later stages of life, I mean, I've looked at, I can't remember her name now, there was a nurse who worked in palliative care, and she talks a lot about, like, the regrets of the dying. And it's something I think about a lot. And she was saying how one of them is that they wish they didn't work as much. And I know my old self on my deathbed, which I know probably won't be a deathbed, it would be like, I'll be like slumped across like a car or something. I don't know how I'm going to die. But I think, I think I always think about, I know. I always think about, oh, lovely deathbed. I always think about this idea that I know on that deathbed, I would wish I spent more time with them. So sometimes I do try to make decisions as the old me, which is why I gave up my business to have my job right now, which allows me to switch off at the weekend, because I'm not the one running everything. So at the weekend now, I don't have to work if I don't want to work. I can pick up my son from nursery. So it's interesting how sometimes for me in this chapter of life, I'm tapping into this slight idea of being slightly less ambitious so I can do certain things with them.
Can I jump on that, Tiffany? Because I think, yes, and that I've read the same thing that you're talking about in terms of, the top 5 regrets, I think it was, of, the dying. And as morbid as it is, then, but yes, it's true, isn't it? It's, the people that are going to miss us when we're gone are not our employers there, But I think so I would argue that, you're not, it's not about being less ambitious. It's about, I guess, almost a level of acceptance that for you, what your all is and looks like, feels like, will change. And Alex, you talked about seasons, and actually, yes, it might mean at a certain time that, from a business point of view or a career point of view, if you're employed, you might make a choice, but an intentional choice to, you know, maybe not go for that promotion, or you know, stick where you are instead of looking for a new employer. But I guess I would see that not as a change to your ambition, but it's more that you're looking at you know, things for the long term.
Okay.
And if you are really clear on what success, you know, is for you, that, you know, which essentially is a scaffolding to your all, then there's real intentionality in the choices that you make. And I find when I'm working with clients that can be quite liberating, and it sort of can prevent that almost sense of like, oh, you know, I feel like I'm having to step back, or that I'm less ambitious. The other thing I would say, and I wish I could I'm trying to think who I saw, I think it was on a webinar, I can't remember, but talked about a bugbear of theirs was, you know, how in the summer you say, oh, you've only got 18 summers, and you know, all of this sort of stuff. And this person was saying, no, that's BS. You know, you're their mom or you're their parent for life. And yes, there might only be a certain amount of summers when, you know, they're small and they're at school, but actually they're going to need you and want you in different days. So almost trying to you know, actually, if you can't show up for all of those things, then guilt is just, you know, a wasted emotion, isn't it? And you're doing your best for you, for your family at that time. And, you know, I don't really remember if my mum was at assemblies or not. And, you know, she used to take me to school every day and pick me up from school every day. My kids go to after school club like 4 days a week. I don't pick them up. But that doesn't mean that, you know, oh, my mum was a better mum than I am. You know, it's just, it's different. And actually it's that intentionality in... I
love that.
It's making me think of some of the stuff that Gina Miller said when we spoke to her the other day. So Gina Miller, that activist.
Yeah.
It was really, really interesting interview. And she said, you know, some of her work has taken her away from her kids. And she really pushed back on the idea that we should feel guilty about that. You know, she said that what's important is they know that you are there for them and that you care, and that is kind of your relationship is kind of the crux of everything. And really, that you're not there for every little thing doesn't matter. As long as they know they are loved and supported, that is what matters. And, you know, I say that as somebody whose dad travelled loads for work, and it did not make me think my daddy doesn't care about me. It made me excited when he came home, you know, that kind of thing. And I think as well, the only other thing I would say about like the ambition, I think the kind of stepping back, or whatever you want to call it, in this season, I think is something that we need to empower women to feel like they can do. But at the same time, I feel like there needs to be that societal change, so it isn't just women doing it, that it's about men doing it too, so that it then doesn't impact on women's finances and career in the future, because we're just the default and we end up doing it, and therefore we're out of the workplace, or we're not taking the promotions, because that only leads to that income gap staying how it is. So we definitely need, alongside empowering women to do whatever the hell they want, to make sure that it is whatever their choices are respected, but that men are doing it too, and make it easier for men to do it. And I will get off my soapbox.
No.
Get up back on.
Stay on it. We love it. No, my husband so when my daughter, who's now 6, when she was born, I was doing some contracting work at the place that he works, and I can't even remember the ins and outs, but basically we were able to get to a position where he could take 6 months parental leave paid,
Nice.
but and I could be off because I wasn't an employee. So anyway, so we had 6 months. You'll laugh because I did go through with my NCT friends. Some of them were like, oh, so it's like your husband going to be like coming for coffees and stuff? And I did suddenly have this like, oh, is he going to get in my way? Like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this.
Like the dad in Motherland.
But so he took 6 months off, and we did some bits, but we went to France for 7 weeks, and we travelled from I still have to do never eat shredded wheat, West Coast. So we flew into Bordeaux, and we hired a car, and then we flew out of Nice like 7 weeks later. We stayed in 13 different places. My eldest was 3.5, and then my daughter was 6 months. Like, would we do it now? No frigging way. But at the time, it seemed to, like, she was 6 months, so she was, we were out the newborn stuff, but it was, I could give her the odd bit of croissant, like I didn't really have to worry too much about weaning, and he was still of the age where he would listen and mainly do what was said, all that sort of stuff. But anyway, my point is that someone really senior in the business, and actually a couple of people outside, like, actually, said to my husband, "Oh, so are you not really serious about your career then?" Because he had chosen to take 6 months full pay, can I just say, off with his family. And it's like, okay, a handful of people said something or comments to him, but you can bet that there were other people saying.
Oh, yeah.
And, and also I imagine he would sort of have to like explain, on a CV point of view, it's like, oh, it's a bit.
There's definitely still a stigma, I think, with men taking a step back in their career to maybe stay-at-home dads.
I mean, one of our friends, Tiffany, so shout out to Brownie, who definitely is not listening, but he took shared parental leave, and he works for a big engineering company, and he was the first man ever to have done it. They didn't know what to do. They were like, we don't know how to put this in place. And since he's done it, it's a global company as well. It's like I'll not name and shame, but basically since then some other men have done it because they were like,
that's brilliant.
This is an option.
Did you say Brownie?
Yes.
Brownie? Yes.
Brownie. Ian Brown. Not the Ian Brown.
It's like, wow, I'm not No, but it is insane, isn't it? The whole our motherhood and fatherhood is seen differently, and how motherhood can be so consuming, but men are like, it's just like they're almost like the invincible stuff to me. I wonder how it affects them as well in terms of not being seen as like a key party to it. Can maybe make them feel a bit pushed out.
Yeah, the whole like, oh, is he babysitting?
Yeah.
I know that really.
Yeah, it must be quite hard for men, because we spoke to Dr. Anne Welsh, and she was saying men are 3 times as evolved as their fathers were in this generation. So men are doing more.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Yeah, they're doing more, but obviously they're still not seen as like a key party to the whole process.
I think as well that so I went out. I've got one of my best mates lives out in Texas, and I went out for a week last year to visit her, and the amount of people that said to me, "Oh, you're so lucky. Oh, Ralph, my husband. Oh, he's so good." And and it's like, what? Like, but you're not, when he's gone away, no one's saying to me, "Oh, well done, you're so good." Do you know what I mean? It's like, they're his children. Yeah. And also, actually, I think that's really positive that they're seeing mummy is going on holiday on her own to be with a friend, and, the house doesn't fall apart. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, no, there's a long way to go on that, isn't there? But circling back to one thing you said, Tiffany, in terms of, if anyone is thinking about starting, on their own, I think the other piece is, is scary for a lot of things. And of course, the big thing is finances. But I think it depends as well at what stage in your career you are, because I always have in the back of my mind that if kindness for success isn't bringing in, what I need for me, for my family, my all essentially, then do you know what? I can go back and get a role in a corporate, or I can pick up a part-time gig, or I can do some contract work, or there's other ways. So I think it's almost, you're not making that that's it, and so it's
almost like you don't see it as an absolute. I like that you're quite like, look, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I can maybe go a job in 6 months, maybe try again. I think it's always interesting. I think sometimes to look at life, like experimenting, almost
Yeah.
damn like final, like if this doesn't work, I'm a failure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Exactly.
I remember, and Worship spoke about this as well. She was saying how, because I was saying to her that recently with my recruitment stuff, I've been doing this candidate outreach, and I was basically doing videos. It's like, oh, hey, I'm Tiffany. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Then like messages. And I remember she was saying how, yeah, I could treat it as an experiment where I can tell, okay, I'm just trying to see if it works. If it doesn't work, I can go back to do something else, rather than seeing it as something that defines me and the
Yes.
outcomes I get from it.
Yeah.
And I thought that was good, especially for women who are quite like typically maybe harder on ourselves or a bit more maybe self-critical. So it's interesting how we can look at our lives as not absolutes, but let me try this. If it doesn't work, I'll try something else. I quite
Yeah.
like that. It's a bit more healthy way of looking at life and ventures.
Yeah. And it just feels a bit more realistic. And the other thing that I did, sorry, hopefully this doesn't make a noise, but I'm just having to let my kitten in because, yeah, coming out of the rain, I did tell you. Oh my
Let's
God.
see.
Exactly. We've had a dog crash my ambition. Now we've got cats.
Oh, did you? Oh,
Where's
okay,
this
well, this is,
podcast
let me show
going?
you then. This is
Let's see,
very
let's
wet.
see.
This is Snickers.
Oh,
So he was going to make more noise banging on the window if I didn't let him in. But no, the other thing that I did that really helped me is I'm a planner,
Okay.
and I like to be in control, which neither of those things are great if you're setting up your own business. So what I did was I needed a time frame in which I almost gave myself the permission to sort of throw everything into it, and had a conversation with my husband to be like, look, this is what I'm thinking, and so I started, like I said, in April last year, and I was like, right, I want to give this everything I've got until the end of the year, so 9 months, and and then we can review, make a call. And what that enabled me to do was so I had been sort of putting myself up for head of, say, learning and development roles, or other leadership bits and pieces, and early on I had actually was approached about a role that sounded amazing at a company that I would like to work for, but it was in sort of the first like week 5 or something, and actually it sort of gave me the confidence and to back myself to be like, do you know what, that's an amazing opportunity, thank you for thinking of me. Right now what I'm doing is I'm putting, rather than that, oh, maybe I should apply just in case this doesn't work out. It also meant that I felt, even if some weeks I'd be like, oh my goodness, I've written loads of posts on LinkedIn and no one's even looking, or I haven't got any clients, or, it's like, it's okay, Kim, you've got, this defined period. And then, so obviously we're past that now. So, we're continuing. But again, I've done it, right, well, let's see where things are at in the middle of the year. And to me as a planner, that felt quite,
it's like reassuring, isn't it?
comforting. Yes. Yeah.
I like that. I know you're planning to tell us more about show us more about Frantic to Fulfilled.
Yes.
I can hear that cat
Go,
going.
Frantic, you're going to be famous now. Well, now he stood by the window, and I'm like,
Oh,
no,
dear.
I've just let you in. Oh, now your tail's
Typical cat.
Right in my face. Yeah, he's a male.
Let's not get back to books.
No,
reading.
yes. Oh, yes, exactly. Oh, my goodness. There is a theme coming through. So Frantic to Fulfilled, I think I mentioned my background, sort of learning and development. So I would design, build and sort of facilitate, courses for managers and leaders. And it's like, why wouldn't I do that in my business? So I built this as initially as a small group coaching program across 8 weeks. I am now launching it, well, soon to be. You'll see on my social media, my website, but I'm going to be launching it on a one-on-one basis as well to go deeper. But essentially on that journey where I sort of partner with women, it is taking them from a place where they are now. And in Frantic, I mean that obviously everyone's situation is differently, but to paint a picture, it's that just, you're on the you're on the hamster wheel, you've got a million plates you're juggling, you keep smashing. We talked about smashing plates, didn't we, when we were chatting before. You're feeling like you're not good enough at work, you're not a good enough mum, you've got no time for yourself, you're not at burnout, but you're in a place where you are surviving, and it's not it's not fulfilling, and it's just, life is just happening, and you just feel that you're doing everything a bit rubbish, through to a place where you're essentially living your all. So what we do along that is we look at we sort of do a bit of a diagnostic, as it were, in terms of where you are now. We do some visioning to almost get to, okay, well, what is success? What is your all? Because that's something, really, how many of us have given time and space to think about that?
Especially post kids. Sorry to interrupt you there, but we might have known, but we're not the same people anymore.
No. Yeah, absolutely. Because as we all know, matrescence is huge, and actually what we want and what success means and looks and feels like to us can be very different. So we take time looking at that. We'll then do work on really understanding our strengths, our values, and then we look at, okay, what are things that get in the way. So we do some work around our inner critic and our limiting beliefs, and then what else do we look at? We look at a few methods, so sort of reframing. We look at boundaries, but not just, I think, in a way that the term, I think sometimes it jars with me, boundaries, because I think it can be quite easy, in inverted commas, to maybe set boundaries, but actually keeping them is very different. And I talk about who's sort of in your who's in your tribe, and who is clear on your boundary, who have you communicated those to, who's supporting you, stay accountable to those. Actually, with your partner, what are their boundaries? How can you work that through as a team? If you're a single parent, well, again, who is it that's sort of got your back and supporting you in those things? And then of course, well, what about the days where, well, it's all fallen to pot, and actually I'm back at square one, and I talk about it's about progress over perfection. And I put a story on Instagram this morning, actually, about, because sometimes people say to me, oh, so do you just are you just living your all the time? And I'm like, no. And I would never want it to come across as that. So I'd had the rant about, because my kids were really annoying me this morning, but actually I was able to pull it back, and then I went for my run, and it's, how can we then, it's not, when we're fulfilled, I mean, it's, well, we're living a life that is based on our terms of success. It doesn't mean that your kids are never going to wind you up, or you're never going to feel stressed, but actually it gets,
do you think it's the awareness? I think sometimes it's the awareness of it rather than like a destination. Do you see what I mean? It's like just being aware that something's happening to you. I think something that is progress in itself. That, okay, I'm aware of this, rather than, oh, I do this all the time and I'm so perfect.
For sure, there's that again. I can't remember what clever person said it, but that whole awareness is curative. So once we're aware of something, we can challenge it if we want. We can question it, we can, whereas when we're not, and we're just like, oh, it's just how it is at the moment, and it's just because the kids are young, and it's like, no. And I think it's I see far too many women, whether it's my friends or colleagues or people in the community, that are it's not about having the perfect everything, because I don't think that exists, but actually we do only get one life, and we deserve to live it in a way in which that we are feel fulfilled, and actually that then bounces off and has ripples to our children, to our partners, to our friends, to everything.
Love it.
I like the idea of that. Like, I remember you said about like boundaries and people pleasing, and because I think sometimes they kind of all go into each other. I'd love to know where you're at with that, because I think that could be useful to someone who's perhaps thinking of, like, yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm really pleased that you asked that, Tiffany, because I think it's definitely still something that I work on ongoing. However, I am much better than I was. And a couple of examples, and again, I'll try and do like a post on Instagram or LinkedIn about it when I do it, because again, I'm not trying to be like, oh, I'm living my all the time, and probably no one would ever want to work with me if that was the case.
It's like we say we're not parenting experts.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure, we're not selling that.
Yeah, no. I'm definitely not selling that. But I've, like a couple of times recently, so it was week before last, I was meant to go for dinner with a friend who I hadn't seen in ages, and we'd had it in the diary. Like, I think it had probably already been rearranged, and I wasn't ill. I could still go about my normal day, but I wasn't feeling amazing. And I just sent her a message, and I just said, look, I'm not feeling great. And I know what I need is just a night in front of the sofa. And, I love you and I want to see you. I'll be in touch once I'm feeling better. And, of course, she was like, yeah, oh my goodness, yeah, of course. But I think previously I would have felt so guilty to be like, I don't want to let her down, particularly if we rescheduled, or she'll think I don't like her. So I would have either have just gone and then probably had a late night, too much wine, and then, suffered for the next day, or I would have I would have said, oh, Ralph's got to work, sorry, I can't go out, told a bit of a white lie. So I'm trying to own my personal boundaries, I guess, more, because personally I think those can be more difficult.
I'm a big FOMO person. I'm like, oh, they're out having fun. I want to be out having fun.
Yes.
But actually, you need to, like, I've got better at thinking, yeah, but you're really tired.
Yeah.
Like, they're your friends. They'll be going out again soon. Just go out with them then.
Well, exactly. And I think it is that whole, and I had another time where I think it was a group thing, and I'd said, oh, I can't remember why. And someone else was like, oh my goodness, thank God you said that, because I was
exactly. Then you give me permission to do the same.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I came across this definition of boundaries a long time ago, and I love it. It's boundaries is where we end and others begin. I love that. This idea of kind of honoring yourself, like allowing yourself to almost end somewhere and let others then begin from somewhere. I really like that, because to me, this is a picture of like you're worthy enough as well to kind of have what you want to give to others, or you want them to feel good, you want them to be happy, but you have that as well. And it's really, I mean, I'm still working on it, but
Yeah,
it's something in my mind that I think it's quite a good idea of thinking.
I think in the workplace as well, and because I'm working with a corporate, I'm coaching some of their maternity returners, and we've been talking about almost establishing boundaries, and from the get-go, rather than feeling like, oh, I need to rebuild this credibility, and all of those sorts of things. And actually I think once you've shared, so again, like, communication is so important. Very rarely do you have someone say, oh, I don't agree with that, or I don't understand that, because it's personal to you. And of course, if you were like, oh, I've got a boundary that I'm only going to work until 1 p.m. every day, and I want you to pay me until 5, of course, that's different. That's not a boundary. But whether it's leaving at certain times to get kids, or whether it's coming in late, or going for a walk at lunchtime and not take meetings. I don't know, those are all small things, but I think we sometimes worry about what others might think, whereas if someone shared with us something that was important to them, or actually I'm gonna come in late a couple of mornings a week because it's the only time I can get a long run in, and I'm training for something, then I think people respect it.
I think as well, there seems to be, certainly on social media, like a recognition from at least people who are working that we're not robots, and that actually there needs to be a bit more flexibility. And what you said there about, you know, coming back and proving yourself after maternity, it just hit me there that there's almost people are almost apologising for having been off and having had kids when they come back. And I feel like that's the reality of it, even though they wouldn't put it like that.
No.
But I feel like there is that element of, right, I got to show them I'm serious about this now, when all you did was have a baby.
I'm the same.
Yeah. And you're not the same. Like,
no. It's very bizarre, isn't it, when you... I mean, like I said, the first time I didn't get to go back because I was made redundant, but I did in the second, and I think it's so weird, isn't it? Because you're like, wow, you come back, and okay, there might be a new poster up on the wall, or, you know, a new person or two or whatever, but essentially it's the same, and you're like, wow, like my life is totally different and it's the same. But yes,
I was going to say projects that you did before you went off, and they're still like fresh in your mind, and you're like, oh yeah, remember when we did such and such? And they're like, no, because it was like so long ago in their like work life. Everything's moved on so far that you're completely out of sync with what's going on.
Yeah, but I think but what you said there about it's, you know, it's we don't need to be proving ourselves, or as you say, almost apologising for taking the time out. So yeah, Snickers is just agreeing with us.
I'm not apologising. I want to be out that window.
Wrap it up, guys. Wrap it up.
I need more cat.
More cat. I love that. Yes. I know you wanted to talk about your program as well, so we'll bunch that into where people can find you online, and tell us a bit more about your program.
Brilliant. Yes, and if anyone is wanting to, you know, learn more about what I do, or I offer a complimentary, what I call Kindness Kickstarter, which is a bit of some coaches call their complimentary thing sort of discovery call. This is different, and that's why it's the 60 minutes versus a lot of them are 30, but essentially it sort of almost gets you on the right path, whether we partner together or not, in terms of how to define your all and begin to show yourself some kindness. So as I said, people can find me on Instagram at kindness.for.success, or, you know, LinkedIn, Kim Stokes, all of the usual places.
The one and only Kim Stokes.
And Snickers, come on.
And Snickers, yay!
Yeah,
Your first podcast.
Yeah, first cat on a podcast, actually. We've had children and dogs, and
I don't know what's next.
Sainsbury's delivery.
We'll open the floodgates here, aren't we? I don't know what we'll have next.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Kim. It's been really nice. I think I've definitely learned a lot about like making conscious choices, and I liked what you were saying to me earlier as well. Something to think about.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Well, I'm very pleased I sent that voice note.
Yes, made it happen. Thank you so much, Kim. Thanks so much, guys, for listening. Don't forget to like, share, smash the like button.
That's what Ted says. Smash the like button.
Smash.
Like, he's 3. What are you talking about?
Well,
and he's not talking about my mission. He's talking about, I don't know, some nonsense on YouTube. Thanks, everyone. Smash that like button.
Yeah, smash the like button. See you on the next one. Take care.